The Galactic Council thought humanity was bluffing. They had 72 hours to withdraw from the Outer Rim colonies. 72 hours to stop the executions. 72 hours to prove they understood what mercy meant. Commander James Mitchell stood in the war room of the UNSC Vindication, watching the timer tick down to 0, knowing that every species in the galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson. Humans don't make empty threats. If you enjoy stories about humanity's hidden strength, hit that like button and subscribe to HFY Core for more epic tales. Drop a comment below about what you think happens next, because what's coming next will change everything. The Council called us primitive, called us soft. They're about to discover why Earth's greatest weapon was never our technology. It was our patience. And that patience just ran out. The Council chamber floated in neutral space, a massive ring station where 17 species gathered to dictate the fate of the outer territories. Commander James Mitchell had been here once before, 3 months ago, when humanity formally lodged Complaint 447 Alpha with the assembled powers. War crimes, civilian massacres on 3 human colony worlds, systematic orbital bombardment of agricultural settlements. The response had been laughter. Not open mockery. These were diplomats after all, but the polite, condescending kind that cut deeper. The Krithak ambassador, a mantis-like creature whose chitin gleamed purple under the station's artificial light, had clicked her mandibles in what passed for amusement among her kind. Your species mistakes conquest for crime, Commander. The strong expand, the weak adapt or perish. This is galactic law. James had stood there in his dress uniform, every ribbon and medal a testament to battles fought. He'd simply placed a data crystal on the central podium. Pursuant to Earth common law, adapted under the Treaty of First Contact, humanity hereby issues formal warning: cease all hostile actions against human settlements within 72 standard hours. Provide full accounting of civilian casualties. Begin reparations negotiations. The Vexian Trade Consulate representative, a floating jellyfish-like being whose bioluminescent patterns betrayed its emotional state, had pulsed yellow with what James's cultural briefing identified as contempt. And if we decline this warning, then Earth recognizes a state of total war. The chamber had erupted, not in fear, but in something worse: pity. They saw Earth's fleet manifest, 43 capital ships, maybe 200 support vessels scattered across a dozen systems. The Krithak hegemony alone fielded 600 warships. The Vexian consulate controlled the trade routes that fed half the galaxy. The Solrathi clans, the Norathi Confederacy, the Pale Aggregate, each commanded resources that dwarfed humanity's entire industrial output. Your warning is noted and filed, the Council Arbiter had said, a gesture that would haunt them all. Now, 3 months later, James stood in the Vindication Strategic Operations Center, deep in her armored heart. The 72 hours had expired 18 minutes ago. Around him, holographic displays showed the tactical picture: human colonies under blockade, orbital platforms destroyed, evacuation ships turned back at gunpoint. Captain Reeves reports the Solace of Memphis is holding position at the Kepler barrier, his tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's voice was steady, professional. She'd grown up on Proxima Station, one of the settlements that stopped transmitting 2 weeks ago. Admiral Torres confirms 3rd Fleet is ready. 5th Fleet is in position at the Narrows. The wolves are green across the board. The wolves. James still remembered the day he briefed that particular unit on their mission parameters. Special Operations Group Fenrir, the most classified unit in human military history. They'd been training for 18 months in ways that would have violated every treaty humanity had ever signed, if those treaties still meant anything. "Sir, incoming transmission," Chen said. "It's from the Council station. Put it through." The holographic display shifted, and a familiar figure materialized. Not one of the Council members, but someone James recognized nonetheless. Shlara, a Norathi tactical analyst he'd worked with during the brief peace after first contact. Her species resembled what Earth might call a bipedal lizard, but her most distinctive feature was the ring of sensory fronds around her neck that shifted colors with her emotional state. Right now, they were pale blue, concern. Commander Mitchell. Her voice came through the translator with that flat precision the Norathi were known for. I am sending this communication without council authorization. You must stand down. The full combined fleet is mobilizing. 3,000 warships will converge on Earth within the month. Your homeworld will be reduced to glass. This is not strategy, this is suicide. James met her eyes, all three of them. The center one that saw heat, the two lateral ones that tracked movement. Shlara, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to remember it in the days ahead. Humanity didn't issue that warning because we thought you'd listen. We issued it because our laws require it. Because even now, we're trying to be better than what you're forcing us to become. Her fronds flickered amber. I do not understand. You will. He gestured to Chen, who killed the feed. The operations center held its collective breath. Every officer present knew what came next. They drilled for it, planned for it. Some of them had nightmares about it. James pulled up the master operations board. Across human space, every military asset was coded and positioned. But that wasn't what made his chest tight. It was the civilian markers, evacuation zones, refugee corridors, emergency medical stations. Even now, in the opening moments of what military historians would call the 72-hour war, humanity was spending half its resources trying to save lives. Not just human lives. Every plan, every contingency, included provisions for alien civilians caught in the crossfire. Because that's what separated them from the species they were about to fight. All commands report ready, Chen said quietly. Somewhere back on Earth, in the deep archives beneath Geneva, a recording was being sealed. His testimony, his reasons, his apology to whatever came after, for what humanity was about to unleash. Because they'd tried peace, they'd tried diplomacy, they'd tried warning. Execute Operation Prometheus. The words hung in the air for a heartbeat. Then the operations center exploded into coordinated chaos. Across 17 systems, human forces began moving with a precision that would have shocked anyone who'd watched their primitive war games. But this wasn't a game. This was humanity showing the galaxy what 300 years of warfare evolution looked like when you stopped pulling your punches. Chen's console lit up with confirmation codes. First strike packages away. The Narrows are ours. Captain Jackson reports. She paused, eyes widening. Sir, Shlara is calling again. Personal channel. Your encryption. The Norathi analyst's face reappeared, but her fronds were now deep crimson, shock and horror. What have you done? She whispered. The Vexian trade hub at Threshold Station. It's just gone. 37 warships destroyed in 17 seconds. How? James felt the weight of command settle deeper on his shoulders. We warned them, Shlara. We gave them 72 hours. They spent that time moving their fleets into attack positions against our colonies. They thought we were too weak, too honorable, too human to strike first. He paused. They were wrong about one of those things. Her center eye locked onto his, heat vision piercing whatever distance separated them. The Council is calling for your complete extermination. They're afraid, Commander. Truly afraid. They're saying humans fight like... She stopped. Like what? Like species that have something to lose. Like you've been preparing for this war since before you met us. Like we're not fighting a civilization. We're fighting a weapon that learned to talk. James glanced at the tactical display. More confirmations flooding in. The opening moves were working even better than projected. But the cost was already mounting. The Kepler barrier defense had held, but the Memphis had taken damage. Casualties were coming in. Tell the Council we'll accept their unconditional surrender at any time, James said. Tell them we're still maintaining safe corridors for civilian evacuation. Tell them humanity still remembers mercy. Shlara's fronds shifted through several colors James didn't recognize. They will never surrender to a species they outnumber 3,000 to 1. Then they'll learn the difference between quantity and quality. We'll talk again, Shlara, when this is over. He cut the connection. Sir, did we just... Lieutenant, status on second phase. She blinked. Back to business. Admiral Torres reports the Basilisk protocols are ready for deployment. Ground teams are in position on all 7 occupied colonies. The Wolves are requesting final authorization. James pulled up the mission parameters one last time. What humanity was about to do would either end the war in days or condemn them to become the very monsters the galaxy feared. The line between victory and atrocity had never been thinner. Authorization granted, he said. God help us all. And somewhere in the dark between stars, 300 human warships vanished from every sensor in the galaxy, leaving the Council's combined fleet searching for ghosts while the real war began where they'd never thought to look. The Basilisk protocols were built on a simple Earth concept. If you can't outfight them, outthink them. If you can't outthink them, be where they don't expect you to be. And if they're already where you need to go, make them wish they'd stayed home. James watched the tactical feed from the Memphis as she limped toward the emergency dock at Haven Station. The cruiser had taken a Solrathi plasma lance through her port engine cluster, a killing blow to most ships. But Captain Reeves had kept her flying through a mixture of jury-rigged repairs and what James could only call spite. 27 crew lost, another 40 in the medical bay. Memphis is secure, Chen reported. Repair estimates at 72 hours minimum. Tell Reeves she's got 48, James said, and commend her crew. They held the line. The bigger picture was developing faster than the Council could process. The Vexian trade hub wasn't just destroyed, it was dissected. Precision strikes had taken out the warships, while leaving the civilian habitat rings intact. Even the Vexian civilians were reporting that human marines had appeared in their corridors, not to kill them, but to hand out emergency supplies and evacuation coordinates, before vanishing again. Sir, we're getting reports from the occupied colonies, Chen said, her voice tight, confirming what the Wolves found. James pulled up the data feeds and felt his jaw clench. The Council hadn't just been occupying the 7 human settlements they'd blockaded. They'd been systematically processing the populations, labor camps, genetic harvesting. On Proxima Station alone, 40,000 humans had simply disappeared into Vexian research facilities. Confirm this is getting recorded and transmitted to neutral systems, he said quietly. Already done, sir. Admiral Torres has dispatched courier drones to the free trader networks and the independent worlds. This is going public. Good. Let the galaxy see what they've been supporting. Let them see why humanity's patience had limits. The operations board flickered and a priority alert flashed. James pulled up the feed and felt his blood run cold. The Narathi Confederacy had just deployed something they'd kept secret. A planet-killer-class weapon, a graviton projector capable of cracking a world's crust from orbit. It was moving toward Earth. Get me Admiral Torres, now! The Admiral's face appeared, and James saw the same calculation happening behind his eyes. You've seen it. Tell me we have an answer for it. Torres nodded grimly. The Prometheus files included contingencies for exactly this scenario, but you're not going to like the cost, Commander. I haven't liked anything about this war, Marcus. What do we need to do? We sacrifice Fifth Fleet. They'll jump directly into the weapons escort formation. Full burn, ramming speed. The collision will scatter the support ships long enough for the Wolves to board the graviton platform itself. James felt the weight of 4,700 lives settle onto his shoulders. Fifth Fleet. Good ships, good crews. And once the wolves are aboard, they plant the resonance charges we've been saving, turn that graviton projector into the largest bomb in galactic history. The blast will take out everything in a 3-system radius, including the wolves. Including the wolves. James closed his eyes. Across the tactical display, Fifth Fleet was already adjusting course. They knew. They'd always known this might be the price. Commander Sarah Walsh was aboard the flagship Defiant, along with 4,600 other volunteers who'd signed up, knowing Earth needed warriors who could make the impossible choice. "Confirm their orders," James said, "and Marcus, make sure the memorial gets their names right." The connection held for another moment, both men sharing the grief of what command demanded. Then Torres nodded and disappeared. Chen's voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, incoming transmission. It's Shalara again." The Norathi analyst appeared, but this time, her fronds were cycling through rapid patterns James had never seen. Panic. "Commander, stop this, please. The Council has authorized the use of the graviton weapon. If you continue, they will destroy Earth." "They will." She stopped, looking at something off-screen. "You already know." "We know," James confirmed. "Shalara, I need you to do something for me. I need you to watch what happens next. Really watch. And then I need you to tell the Council that humanity sent you a message." "What message?" "That we're not defending Earth by hiding behind it. We're defending it by making sure that weapon never fires. You can't reach it in time. It's already accelerating toward your homeworld. The escort fleet is 1,200 warships strong." "I know." Realization crashed over her features. "You're going to— No, that's suicide. Even for humans, that's madness." James pulled up the tactical feed and shared it with her. She watched as Fifth Fleet adjusted course, every ship burning at maximum acceleration, vectoring directly toward the graviton platform's defensive perimeter. 4,700 human lives, making a choice that no species in the galaxy had thought possible. "This is what you never understood about us," James said quietly. "You thought our greatest weakness was that we cared about individual lives. You thought our sentimentality made us soft. But Shlara, the flip side of caring about each life is that we know exactly what we're asking when we ask someone to give theirs. And they say yes anyway." The feed showed Fifth Fleet hitting the defensive perimeter. Norathi battlecruisers opened fire. Solrathi interceptors swarmed. Vexian beam weapons carved through armor. And Fifth Fleet just kept coming. Every ship a missile aimed at the heart of the formation. The Defiant took 17 direct hits before she reached her target, a Norathi command carrier. Commander Walsh's last transmission was 5 words. "Earth sends its regards. Now." The carrier and the Defiant became a single expanding fireball. The shockwaves scattered the escort formation like leaves in a storm. And through the chaos, 8 small ships, barely bigger than shuttles, streaked toward the graviton platform itself. The wolves had arrived. "Boarding in progress," Chen reported, her voice thick. "Fenrir team is inside the platform. They're cutting through it like it's not there." James watched the tactical feed as the wolves did what they'd been trained to do. These weren't regular soldiers. They were humanity's answer to a simple question. What if we stopped fighting fair? What if we took every lesson learned in 300 years of warfare, every dirty trick, every psychological edge, every technical advantage, and we built warriors specifically designed to terrify? The Council's forces inside the platform never stood a chance. The wolves moved like ghosts, struck like thunder, and left only silence behind them. "Resonance charges armed," came the transmission from Fenrir Lead. James recognized the voice. Colonel David Marcus, a man who trained more soldiers than James had commanded. "Platform is locked down. Beginning evacuation of surviving Council personnel." "Repeat that last, Fenrir Lead." "Sir, There are approximately 300 Council military personnel still alive on this platform. Requesting permission to evacuate them via emergency pods before we detonate. Shlara was staring at him. You're going to save them? After they tried to destroy your homeworld? We're going to give them the choice to surrender, James said. Fenrir lead, authorization granted. Document all surrenders. Anyone who chooses to go down with the platform, that's their choice. 20 minutes later, the graviton platform detonated. The blast was visible from 17 light-years away. When it cleared, the Council's secret weapon was gone, along with Colonel Marcus and the 47 Wolves of Fenrir team. But 300 Council soldiers were in escape pods, being picked up by human rescue ships. 300 witnesses to what humanity had just done. And just as importantly, what they'd chosen not to do. Sir, Chen said softly, the Council is transmitting on all channels. They're calling for immediate ceasefire negotiations. James felt something twist in his chest. Not relief, not yet. Counteroffer. They have 24 hours to pull back from all human settlements, 48 hours to release every civilian they've taken, 72 hours to stand before a neutral tribunal, or we keep going. Commander, Shalara said, her frowns showing something James's cultural briefing said was grief. You just destroyed the Council's ultimate weapon and saved their soldiers in the same breath. They don't know how to process that. Half of them think you're monsters. The other half think you're insane. What do you think? She was quiet for a long moment. I think humans might be the first species that fights wars like they actually want them to end. Most of us, we fight until there's nothing left to fight with. You fight until there's nothing left worth fighting for, then you stop. Tell the Council we're waiting for their answer. The transmission ended. James looked at the casualty reports. 5th Fleet, total loss. Fenrir team, total loss. Memphis crew, 27 dead, and those were just the ones he knew about. The full accounting would take days, but Earth was safe. The colonies would be free, and for the first time since the war began, the Council understood what they were really fighting. Not humanity's military, not their technology, not even their tactics. They were fighting humanity's choice to remain human, even when it would have been easier to become monsters. And the Council was starting to realize that might be the most terrifying weapon in the galaxy. The 24-hour deadline came and went. The Council pulled back from 4 of the 7 occupied settlements. The other 3, Proxima Station, New Edinburgh, and Trinity Falls, remained under blockade, with Council forces dug in deep. They were betting humanity wouldn't assault positions where civilian populations could be caught in the crossfire. They were wrong. James stood in the Vindication's briefing room, addressing the assault commanders via secure holographic link. Captain Elizabeth Shaw from the Marine Raiders, Colonel Thomas Chen from the Orbital Drop Division, and Commander Isaac Wright from Naval Special Warfare, the 3 people who would lead the liberation operations. The Council thinks we won't move because they're using our people as shields, James said. They're counting on our mercy. So we're going to show them what mercy actually looks like. 3 simultaneous strikes, each tailored to the specific conditions on the ground. But the underlying principle was the same. Save every civilian possible, even if it meant taking higher casualties. Even if it meant fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. Proxima Station is the priority, James continued. Intelligence confirms they're using the civilian population for forced labor in the lower habitat rings. Captain Shaw, your raiders will insert via low-signature pods directly into the service tunnels. You'll have 17 minutes before the Council forces detect you. Shaw, a woman whose service record included 3 separate incidents where she'd held positions against impossible odds, nodded curtly. What about the civilian zones? Commander Wright's team will handle extraction. Isaac, you're inserting 30 minutes before the raiders. Your job is to get the civilians into the hardened shelters before the shooting starts. Once they're secure, you pull back and let Shaw's people work. Wright, whose team specialized in exactly the kind of impossible rescue missions that looked good in training simulations but never worked in practice, allowed himself a small smile. So we're just going to politely ask 4,000 terrified civilians to trust us and follow us into sealed bunkers while a battle rages overhead. That's exactly what you're going to do, because you're the best at it. The third commander, Colonel Chen, studied the tactical overlay. New Edinburgh is going to be a problem. The Council has positioned artillery batteries on the ridgeline overlooking the settlement. They can hit anywhere in the valley. Which is why we're not going to be in the valley, James said. He pulled up the geological survey. New Edinburgh sits on top of the largest aquifer in that system. The original colonists drilled access shafts every 200 meters for irrigation. Those shafts connect to natural cave networks that run under the entire settlement. Chen's expression shifted from concern to something like predatory interest. We tunnel up underneath them. Exactly. Hit them from below, fast and hard. By the time they realize you're there, it's over. And Trinity Falls? Shaw asked. James hesitated. Trinity Falls was the nightmare scenario. The settlement was built on a space elevator platform, 2,000 civilians living and working in a structure that could be destroyed with a single well-placed explosive. The Council forces had made it clear, any assault would result in the platform's destruction. Trinity Falls is personal, James said quietly. I'm taking a team in myself. The three commanders exchanged glances. Sir, Shaw began, with respect. I know what you're going to say, Captain. Commanders don't lead assault teams. But Trinity Falls requires something different. It requires someone who can negotiate while fighting. Someone who can make command-level decisions in real time. Someone the Council might actually believe when they're told they have one chance to walk away. Or someone who can take responsibility if it goes wrong, Chen said quietly. James met his eyes. That too. The briefing continued for another hour, working through contingencies and backup plans and the 1,000 details that separated success from catastrophe. When the commanders finally signed off, James was left alone with the tactical displays and the weight of what he'd just ordered. A soft tone indicated an incoming transmission. Shlara's face appeared, but something was different. Her fronds were showing multiple colors simultaneously. A Narathi expression so complex, James's cultural database couldn't translate it. Commander Mitchell, I've been recalled to the Confederacy, she said. This is likely our final communication. But I wanted to tell you something you need to hear. I'm listening. The Council is fracturing. The Vexian consulate is demanding total war. The Solrathi clans are threatening to withdraw entirely. The Pale Aggregate has gone silent. And my people, she paused, her fronds shifting to deep blue. The Narathi Confederacy is quietly reviewing our alliance commitments. You're considering joining us? We're considering not opposing you, which, for the Confederacy, is nearly the same thing. She leaned forward. Commander, there's something else. The prisoners you rescued from the Graviton platform, they're talking. The stories they're telling their governments about how your wolves treated them, about the medical care they received, about the choices you gave them even in the middle of a combat operation, it's spreading. And there's a word that keeps appearing in the reports. They keep calling you honorable. Do you understand what that means? These are warriors who fought across 100 systems. They've seen every kind of warfare the galaxy has to offer. And they're saying that humans fight with honor. James felt a bitter laugh building in his chest. Shlara, we just sacrificed nearly 5,000 people to destroy a single weapon platform. We're about to assault 3 occupied settlements, knowing that civilians might die despite our best efforts. If that's honor, I'm not sure I want it. That's exactly why you have it, she said. Because you understand the cost. Because you make the terrible choices and then live with them, instead of pretending they weren't terrible. The galaxy has never seen that before. Most species either fight without restraint, or they don't fight at all. You fight with everything you have, while still trying to be better than the fight demands. Tell that to the families of Fifth Fleet. I think they already know, Commander. I think that's why they volunteered. The transmission ended, leaving James alone with thoughts he couldn't afford to dwell on. Outside the Vindication's armored hull, the assault fleets were gathering. In 6 hours, 3 simultaneous operations would determine whether humanity's approach to war was sustainable or just a beautiful ideal that would shatter against reality. His console chimed with an incoming file. Recognition codes identified it as coming from Lieutenant Chen. The subject line was simple: "You need to see this." James opened it and found himself looking at intercepted Council communications. But these weren't military dispatches. They were civilian broadcasts, news feeds, cultural commentaries, all focused on humanity's conduct in the war. A Vexian philosopher arguing that the old warrior codes needed to be reconsidered in light of the human paradox. A Solrathi military academy professor using human tactics as examples of third-tier strategic thinking, warfare that operated on moral and psychological levels simultaneously. A Norathi composer had even created a memorial piece for Fifth Fleet, titled The Volunteers. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time in their history, they were seeing something that didn't fit any of their existing frameworks. A species that fought like demons, but tried to act like angels. Warriors who would sacrifice themselves to save enemies. A military force that spent as much time planning rescues as planning attacks. "Commander Mitchell to all assault elements," James said into the shipwide channel. "Final briefing in 1 hour, and to everyone listening, I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. I know we could do this easier, faster, cleaner if we just stopped caring about collateral damage. But the moment we do that, we become exactly what the Council claims we are. So we're gonna do this the hard way. We're gonna save every civilian we can. We're gonna offer surrender to every Council soldier who's willing to take it. And we're gonna show the galaxy that humanity meant every word of that warning we gave them." He paused, thinking of Fifth Fleet, of the Wolves, of every soldier who'd made the choice to remain human, even when the war demanded otherwise. "Because if we win this war by becoming monsters, then we've lost everything worth fighting for." Mitchell out. The operations board showed 6 hours until the assault. James pulled up the Trinity Falls files one more time, studying every detail of the space elevator platform, every potential entry point, every place where things could go catastrophically wrong. Somewhere on that platform, 2,000 civilians were waiting for rescue they probably didn't believe would come. And in 6 hours, James would either save them all or watch them die. There was no middle ground, no partial victory, just the terrible clarity of command and the weight of choices that could never be unmade. The assault on Proxima Station began in silence. Captain Shaw's raiders dropped from high orbit in stealth pods, no bigger than coffins, using the station's own garbage trajectory to mask their approach. 17 minutes. That's all they had before the Council's sensor net would pick up the thermal signatures of 90 human soldiers moving through maintenance tunnels designed for drones. James watched it unfold from the Vindication's tactical center, knowing he couldn't help, couldn't intervene, could only watch and trust that his people would do the impossible. "Shaw's team is inside," Chen reported. "Wright's extraction team is moving to the civilian zones. No contact yet." On the tactical display, 90 blue icons representing the raiders moved through the station's guts like antibodies hunting an infection. The Council forces showed as red markers. 300 soldiers spread across the upper habitat rings, concentrated around the labor zones where Proxima's civilians were being held. Commander Wright's voice came through the channel, calm and steady. "This is Shepherd 6 to all civilian shelters. We are United Nations Security Council military personnel. We are here to get you out. Please proceed to your designated hardened shelters in an orderly fashion. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The civilian markers on the display began moving. Slowly at first, then with increasing urgency as people realized this wasn't another council trick or simulation. 4,000 human civilians, flooding toward the reinforced bunkers that were designed to protect them from hull breaches. Wright's team moved among them, not hurting, but guiding, offering calm reassurance in a dozen languages. James watched one of his soldiers, couldn't have been more than 22 years old, stop to help an elderly woman who'd fallen, carrying her toward the shelter while keeping his weapon ready. First civilian shelter sealed, Wright reported, estimating 70% safe, continuing extraction. 17 minutes turned into 16, 15, 14. Then, the council forces detected the raiders. Contact, Shaw's voice cut through the channel. Council forces converging on Section 7, engaging. The tactical display erupted with hostile markers. The council had been using thermal sensors after all, watching and waiting to see what humanity would do. Now they were springing their trap. 300 soldiers moving to pin the raiders between them and the outer hull. Except Shaw had expected this. All teams, pattern Delta. Show them what a kill box actually looks like. The raiders had spent months training for close-quarters combat in artificial gravity environments. The Council forces had trained for open space battles, fleet actions, wars of maneuver and position. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration in how much difference training could make. The raiders moved through the station like they'd been born there, using maintenance shafts as firing positions, cutting gravity in select sections to throw the Council soldiers off balance, setting shaped charges that vented entire corridors to space, forcing the enemy to retreat into carefully prepared ambush points. "We're pushing them toward the docking bays," Shaw reported. Her voice was tight with adrenaline, but controlled. "If we can get them to the evac ships—" "Negative," James interrupted. "The moment they reach those ships, they'll realize they're beaten and might do something desperate. Keep the pressure on, but leave them a path to surrender." A pause. "Sir, with respect, that makes our job harder." "I know. Do it anyway." On the display, James watched Shaw adjust her tactics, creating a corridor of least resistance that led not to escape, but to a sealed section where Council forces could lay down weapons without losing face. It cost time. It cost momentum. It cost 3 raiders wounded when they had to hold position instead of pressing advantage. But it worked. "Council commander is requesting parley," Shaw reported. "They want to discuss terms." "Tell them the terms are simple," James said. "Weapons down, hands visible, medical treatment for anyone who needs it. They surrender as soldiers, not criminals. Full protections under the Articles of War." The Council commander, a Solrathi clan chief, whose file indicated he'd never surrendered anything in his life, appeared on the communication channel. His 4 eyes focused on James with an intensity that could have cut steel. "Human commander, you have beaten us through superior tactics and knowledge of terrain. But there is no honor in forcing surrender at gunpoint." "Then there's no honor in war," James replied. "But there is mercy, which is why you and your soldiers will walk out of this station alive, medically treated, and repatriated to your homeworld when this is over. That's more than you offered the civilians you were using as slave labor." The Solrathi's 4 eyes narrowed. "You dare judge us? No, I'm offering you a choice. Take it or don't." For a long moment, the channel held nothing but silence. Then one by one, the red markers on the tactical display went inactive as Council weapons powered down. "We accept your terms," the Solrathi said. Each word sounded like it cost him physically. "When the greater fleets arrive, your mercy will not save you." "Maybe not," James agreed, "but it'll help us sleep at night." The channel cut. James let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Proxima Station is secure," Chen announced. "Total civilian casualties, 0. Total council casualties, 0. Raiders report 12 wounded, none critical. Captain Shaw is requesting priority transport for council prisoners who need medical attention beyond what the station can provide. Granted. And Chen, send a message to Admiral Torres. Tell him Proxima worked exactly as planned. Tell him it's time. Sir? James pulled up the strategic display. The council thought Proxima was the main effort. They thought humanity was focused on liberating the occupied settlements. They had no idea what was really happening. Because while the raiders took Proxima, while Chen's drop troops prepared to assault New Edinburgh, while the galaxy watched humanity fight a war of liberation, Admiral Torres and the bulk of the human fleet had been moving into position for the real objective. Tell the Admiral, Operation Checkmate is approved. Hit them where they live. On the display, human fleet markers began appearing in Council space. Not at the frontier, not at military installations, at the logistical heart of the Council's war effort, the supply depot at Threshold Prime, the shipyards at Krenith, the fuel refineries orbiting Sulrath 4. Humanity wasn't just fighting to defend its settlements. It was cutting out the Council's ability to wage war at all. And they were doing it with the same precision they'd shown at Proxima. Targeting the infrastructure, avoiding civilian casualties, offering surrender to every ship that would take it. Sir, we're getting reports from New Edinburgh, Chen said. Colonel Chen's forces have breached the surface. She paused, eyes widening. Sir, the Council forces are pulling back. They're not even fighting. They're just leaving. Put it on screen. The tactical feed showed Council forces abandoning their positions, running for their transport ships. Not in organized retreat, but in panic. Because news of what happened at Proxima had already spread. Because they'd seen what humanity did to soldiers who surrendered versus those who fought. And they'd made their choice. New Edinburgh is being liberated without a shot fired, Chen reported, disbelief clear in her voice. The colonists are coming out of shelter. Commander, they're waving flags. 2,000 colonists, emerging from months of occupation, waving improvised human flags, and cheering as Colonel Chen's drop troops secured the settlement. Not because they'd won a battle, because they'd won without having to fight it. But there was still Trinity Falls. Commander Wright reports civilian evacuation at Proxima is 93% complete, Chen said. Captain Shaw is coordinating with Council medical personnel to treat their wounded. Admiral Torres confirms Operation Checkmate is proceeding ahead of schedule. Council logistics network is in full collapse. And Trinity Falls? Chen's expression flickered. Sir, the Council commander there is refusing all communication. Intelligence suggests he's preparing to destroy the platform if we approach. James had been preparing for this moment since the war began. Trinity Falls was personal because he'd helped design that space elevator. He'd consulted on the platform specifications. He'd stood on that structure and watched the sun rise over an alien world and felt proud of what humanity could build. Now he was going to have to fight for it. Tell the Vindication to prepare my shuttle. I'm going in personally. Sir, that's an order, Lieutenant. Trinity Falls needs someone who can negotiate and fight simultaneously. Someone who knows that platform better than the Council forces occupying it. And someone who's willing to take the consequences if this goes wrong. He stood, straightening his uniform. Somewhere on that platform, 2,000 civilians were waiting. And James Mitchell was going to bring them home. The approach to Trinity Falls required precision that made the Proxima assault look simple. The space elevator platform hung 36,000 kilometers above the planetary surface. Connected to the ground by a carbon nanotube tether so thin it was barely visible from orbit. The Council forces had positioned explosives at key structural points. One wrong move and 2,000 civilians would die in the time it took the platform to fall. James sat in the shuttle's cockpit, studying the platform schematic one more time. Beside him, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, daughter of the woman who'd led Fifth Fleet to its heroic end, piloted with the kind of cold precision that came from channeling grief into purpose. "Approach angle confirmed," Walsh said. "They're not shooting at us yet. They want to talk first. They think they can negotiate using the civilians as leverage. Can they? They're about to find out." The shuttle docked at the platform's main airlock. James had brought a small team, 6 of the best soldiers humanity had, plus a combat medic and a structural engineer. Not enough to fight 300 Council troops, but enough to do what needed to be done. The airlock cycled open, and they were met by a Vexian security detail. The floating jellyfish-like beings pulsed with colors James' briefing suggested meant caution mixed with aggression. A dangerous combination. "Commander Mitchell," one of them said through its translator, "our command staff will see you. Your soldiers remain here. My team comes with me. Non-negotiable." The Vexian's bioluminescence flickered red. "You are in no position to make demands." James stepped forward, close enough that the Vexian had to tilt backward to maintain personal space. "I'm in a position to offer you something better than what you have. You're occupying a platform designed to hold 5,000 people, with enough supplies for maybe another month. The nearest Council fleet is 6 days away. My fleet is 3 hours away, and growing every minute. You can talk to me, or you can wait for them. Your choice." The Vexian's colors shifted through several patterns before settling on yellow, what the briefing called reluctant agreement. "Follow." They moved through the platform, and James felt his chest tighten. He'd walked these corridors before, back when Trinity Falls was a symbol of human achievement. Now they were occupied territory, and the civilians he passed looked haunted, malnourished, afraid. But when they saw his uniform, something changed in their eyes. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope that could shatter if he failed. The Council Command Center was located at the platform's core, where it could monitor all critical systems. 3 commanders waited. The Vexian James had met, a Solrathi warrior whose clan markings indicated high rank, and a Norathi whose sensory fronds were showing deep purple. Anger or determination, the briefing wasn't clear which. "You've come to offer surrender," the Solrathi said. It wasn't a question. "I've come to accept yours," James replied. The Norathi's fronds flared crimson. "We hold this platform. We hold 2,000 of your civilians. We have explosives positioned to destroy the entire structure. And you speak of accepting our surrender?" James pulled up his tactical display, showing them what was happening across Council space. The logistics network in collapse. The supply depots burning. The shipyards quiet. The fleet positioned not to defend, but to retreat. "The war is over," he said quietly. "You just don't know it yet. The Council's ability to wage offensive operations is gone. The member species are fracturing. Half of them are already seeking separate peace. What you hold here isn't a bargaining chip. It's a death trap. Because if you destroy this platform, there's no negotiation, no mercy, no surrender. Just the full weight of human retribution focused on everyone responsible." "You threaten us?" the Vexian pulsed. "I'm explaining the consequences of choices. You can surrender right now, with honor, with medical treatment, with repatriation to your homeworlds. Or you can murder 2,000 civilians and discover what humanity becomes when we stop trying to be civilized." "We could kill you where you stand," the Solrathi said. "You could try," James agreed. "But Lieutenant Commander Walsh out there has a dead man switch linked to 17 human warships. The moment my vitals stop, they jump in system and reduce this platform to atoms. You'd kill me, kill your hostages, and die anyway. Or," he pulled up another display, "you take the surrender terms. Your soldiers go home. The platform gets returned to civilian control. Nobody else has to die today." The 3 commanders looked at each other. James could see the calculation happening. They'd been taught that humans were weak, sentimental, easy to manipulate through threats to civilians. Everything they'd seen in this war had proven that wrong, but letting go of deeply held beliefs was hard. "We need time to consider," the Norathi said. "You have 5 minutes. That's not enough. Then you don't understand how negotiations work when one side has already lost. 5 minutes, starting now." James turned and walked to the observation window, looking out at the planet below. Behind him, he could hear the council commanders arguing in their own languages, translators trying to keep up. His team maintained position near the door, ready for whatever came next. Then, the alarms started. "What is that?" James demanded. The Vexian's bioluminescence went white. Panic. "Someone's activated the demolition sequence, but we didn't." James was moving before the translator finished, his team right behind him. "Where's the primary control?" "Lower maintenance level. But Commander, the codes are overridden," James finished. "Someone on your team decided to make the choice for you." He was running now, Walsh and the others keeping pace. The platform structure was exactly as he remembered. Down 3 levels, through the emergency bulkhead, past the civilian quarters. They found him at the demolition control panel. A young Solrathi soldier, barely old enough to be in service, his 4 eyes wide with fear and determination. The detonator was in his hands, countdown showing 4 minutes. "Stop," James commanded. The Solrathi's translator caught up. "I serve the council. I will not allow my commanders to surrender with dishonor. These civilians are enemy combatants by proximity. Their deaths will accomplish nothing," James interrupted. "Except turning you into a mass murderer. Is that what you want?" "I want to serve with honor." "Then put down the detonator and let your commanders make their own choices. Killing 2,000 people who can't fight back isn't honor. It's butchery." The Solrathi's hands shook. The countdown read 3 minutes. James took a slow step forward. "What's your name, soldier?" I am Kelthar of Clan Surath." "Kelthar, I'm Commander James Mitchell. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've made decisions in combat that still wake me up at night. I've ordered strikes that killed people who probably didn't deserve it. I've made mistakes that cost lives I can't get back. But I've never killed people who couldn't fight back. Because the moment you do that, you stop being a soldier and become something else. Something worse." The council ordered. "The council isn't here. You are. This is your choice, not theirs. And I need you to understand something." James took another step. "If you detonate those charges, my fleet won't just destroy this platform. They'll go to your homeworld, to Clan Surath's territory. And they'll make sure everyone knows that Kelthar of Clan Surath murdered 2,000 civilians. Your name won't be honored. It'll be cursed. Your clan won't celebrate you. They'll disown you. Is that what you want?" The countdown read 2 minutes. Kelthar's 4 eyes were leaking moisture. Tears, if Solrathi had them. "I don't know what I want. I just know I can't let them win." "We've already won," James said gently. "All you're deciding now is how many people die for nothing. Put down the detonator, Kelthar. Walk out of here as a soldier who made the right choice when it mattered most." The countdown read 90 seconds. "If I surrender, will you kill me?" "No. You'll be treated as a prisoner of war. Medical care, food, eventual repatriation, same as every other council soldier who surrenders. Even after. Because we're trying to be better than this war demands. Help us do that." The countdown read 60 seconds. Kelthar looked at the detonator, then at James, then at the panel showing the platform's civilian sections, where 2,000 people had no idea they had less than a minute to live. "I don't want to be a murderer," he whispered. "Then don't be." The countdown read 30 seconds. Kelthar set down the detonator. James moved faster than he'd ever moved in his life, grabbing the device and killing the sequence with 15 seconds to spare. The demolition charges went inactive. The platform shuddered, but held. and somewhere above them, 2,000 civilians kept breathing, without ever knowing how close they'd come. James looked at Kelthar, who'd collapsed to his knees. "You made the right choice, soldier. Your clan will honor you for it." The young Solrathi just nodded, unable to speak. When they returned to the command center, the 3 council commanders were waiting. The Norathi's fronds were showing colors James had never seen, something between grief and relief. Our demolition officer," she asked, "is alive and in custody," James said. "He tried to make a choice that wasn't his to make. I stopped him. Now you 3 get to make the real choice." The Solrathi commander straightened to full height. "We surrender. With honor." "With honor," James agreed. "Trinity Falls is liberated. The civilians are safe. And you get to go home, knowing you chose peace over pointless slaughter." The relief in the room was palpable. James turned to Walsh. "Get word to the fleet. Trinity Falls is secure. Total casualties, 0. And just like that, the last occupied settlement was free. 6 weeks later, James stood in the same neutral station where this had all begun. But the council chamber looked different now. Instead of 17 species looking down at humanity with contempt, there were 17 delegations sitting at the same level, negotiating the future. The war had lasted 72 hours of actual combat. The consequences would last generations. The Vexian consulate had been dissolved, its member worlds now independent. The Solrathi clans had undergone what they called a leadership clarification, which James understood meant the war chiefs who'd advocated for conflict had been replaced by those who'd argued for peace. The Norathi Confederacy had formally withdrawn from the council and was now signing mutual defense pacts with humanity. The casualties still hurt. 5th Fleet, the Wolves of Fenrir, the Memphis crew. Soldiers who'd made the choice to give everything so their civilization could remain civilized. But they'd won, not just the war, but something more important. "Commander Mitchell?" A familiar voice pulled him from his thoughts. Shalara approached, her sensory fronds showing colors James's updated briefing identified as respect mixed with curiosity. "I wanted to speak with you before the final treaty signing." "Of course." She gestured to the observation window, where stars spread across the darkness. "Do you know what we're calling this war in the Confederacy?" "I've heard several names. The official title is the 72-hour conflict. But soldiers, the ones who actually fought, they're calling it the human lesson." James raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "It's meant as respect. They say humanity taught the galaxy that warfare doesn't have to mean genocide, that victory doesn't require abandoning ethics, that the strongest warriors are those who know when to offer mercy. Tell that to 5th Fleet's families." Shalara's fronds shifted to deep blue, the Norathi equivalent of solemn acknowledgement. "They know, Commander. Every species in the Council sent delegations to the memorial service on Earth. We saw the wall of volunteers. We heard their names. We understood what they gave." "Did you understand why?" She was quiet for a moment. "I think so. They believed their sacrifice would mean something, that it would create a future worth having. And they were right." James looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were helping rebuild the settlements that had been damaged. Human engineers were sharing technology with former enemies. Human diplomats were negotiating trade agreements that would benefit everyone. "The treaty's ready for signing," he said. "Your delegation prepared?" "Yes. Full reparations for human losses. Return of all detained civilians. Tribunal proceedings for those responsible for the worst violations. And," she paused, "the Council's formal acknowledgement that humanity issued proper warning, followed lawful procedures, and fought with extraordinary restraint despite facing existential threat. In other words, we told you so." The ghost of something that might have been humor flickered across her fronds. In diplomatic language, yes. They walked toward the signing chamber together. The treaty document was already laid out, awaiting signatures from all 17 species. But James's attention was drawn to something else, a recording prepared by the neutral peacekeeping force that had investigated the conflict. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked. Shalara nodded. "The complete evidence file. Every war crime, every violation, every instance where the Council or its forces acted in ways that justified your response. It's being released to every civilian network in the galaxy simultaneously with the treaty signing. Why? Because the galaxy needs to understand what actually happened. Not the propaganda, not the political spin, the truth. That humanity tried every peaceful option, issued formal warnings with clear deadlines, and fought the most restrained war in recorded history, even while facing attempted genocide." James thought about young Kelthar, who'd chosen mercy over murder, about the Council soldiers who'd surrendered at Proxima, about the 300 witnesses from the Graviton platform who'd told anyone who'd listen about how humanity treated prisoners. Will it make a difference? It already has. The free trader networks are calling for humanity to help reform the galactic war codes. 3 species have formally requested human military advisors to help them develop ethical warfare doctrine. And the independent worlds want to establish a permanent alliance with Earth. So we fought a war to end up more connected to the galaxy than before. You fought a war to prove you weren't weak. You proved you weren't weak. Now everyone wants to learn from you. She gestured to the signing chamber. Shall we? The treaty signing took hours. Each species made formal statements. Each delegation signed in their own way. Some with traditional instruments, some with biometric markers, one by singing a legally binding harmonic pattern that James's translators struggled to process. When it came to Earth's turn, Admiral Torres stood to read the prepared statement. But James noticed he'd added something at the end. Humanity entered this conflict reluctantly and concluded it at the earliest possible moment. We mourn every life lost, human and alien alike. We acknowledge that perfect justice is impossible in war, but we strove for it nonetheless. And we hope that the galaxy understands. We didn't fight this war to prove we were strong. We fought it to prove strength and ethics aren't mutually exclusive. The chamber held silence for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, the Solrathi delegation rose and performed what James's briefing identified as a warrior's salute, the highest honor their culture could give. One by one, other delegations followed. Not all of them. Some still harbored resentment or fear. But enough that James understood something fundamental had changed. After the signing, as delegations dispersed, James found himself alone with his tablet, scrolling through messages from home. Promotions for his officers. Medal ceremonies being planned. Memorial funds established for fallen soldiers. And one message that caught his attention, a civilian coalition on Earth had started something called the 72-Hour Foundation, dedicated to ensuring that humanity never forgot the cost of remaining human, even in war. They wanted him to serve on the advisory board. He was about to decline. Commanders shouldn't profit from wars they fought, when he noticed the Foundation's proposed first initiative, scholarships for children of every species that had fought in the conflict. Human, Vexian, Solrathi, Norathi, all of them.